Okay. So a couple announcements before we get started with the next talk. On your schedules, it says Lockpicking Village, Intro to Lockpicking right now. That's been moved to 3 o'clock. Also at 3 o'clock is the Fail of Things in the Chill Out Room. Just a disclaimer, no recording or publishing of the fails. These are our personal fails to loll at, if that's all right with you guys. Public service announcement, once again, we're doing really good. We're almost done. If you guys can make it until like 6 p.m. without any more dick butts, it'll be really great for me on the contract side of things. So I'm very proud of you guys. No, we will not be making Dick Butt the mascot. On that note, later on at 5 p.m. in this room, we have closing ceremonies. Contests end around 4 p.m., so if you're doing the contest, make sure you submit all your points and win the acclaim of your peers by then. We are also selling LayerOne t-shirts over at the registration desk, so if you haven't picked one up, you want to get some for your friends or, backlog. I like to have the one I wear and the safety one in case I ruin this one, just in case. Those are available over at Reg for $20, which will probably be closing around 5. Also available are recordings of all the talks. So if you want a specific talk, it's $5. If you want all the talks, they come in this very nice LayerOne branded thumb drive. Those are available outside with Media Archive, so show them some love after this talk. Coming up next, we have Amit with OSX Pirrit, the blue balls of Mac adware. So please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, kind sir. All right. Okay, so thank you all for coming to my talk. So this is the first time I'm speaking publicly out of my home country. So thanks for having me here. It's awesome. And thanks for dimming the lights because our slides are rather dark. So, okay, today we're going to talk about a really annoying thing, which is adware. And not a lot have been said on adware. People always dismiss it and they say, oh, it just shows ads and it does nothing. But when this terrible thing comes to Mac, it's a real pain in the ass. And this is what I'm going to talk about here, OSX Pirrit, which is a really annoying thing. And the reason I call this talk the blue balls of Mac adware is that, as you will see in the future, as we go through the presentation, this could have been much worse, but it just displays ads. So let's go through with it. So as I said, I am not from here. So my name is Amit Serper, and if you ask, hey, what the fuck is with the weird name? So this is because I'm from here. This is Tel Aviv, Israel. But soon I will be moving here, and this is Boston, Massachusetts. So this is going to be interesting, considering the fact that I'm 29 and I've seen snow only twice in my life. So let's see how this will go in the future. But your water smells funny. Okay, so today I'm leading the OSX and Linux research at Cybereason, which is where I work, and I have to say that we sponsored it after I was accepted to speak here, so no favors were pulled. I'm doing mostly low-level research, kernel reversing, this kind of stuff. The stuff I'm presenting today is usually not what I'm doing, although it says malware research, but hey, how many malware have you seen impacting Macs, right? Some notable things that you might have read that I did the hacking team server research when this whole thing happened a year ago. All of the links over there, you can check out our work. I did it with Alex Fraser, who sits right here. Raise your hand, wave. He's very shy, so that's him. We did it together. So again, all of the links are here. Feel free to visit. Before that, I was the lead security researcher at a place I can't say what I did, so I'm sorry, but I worked for the Israeli government sometimes for 9 years. And you're invited to follow me on Twitter, which is always awesome. So one thing I like to say before I'll start is, and this is not something I saw here, so it's awesome, but a lot of times security researchers are dicks, especially where I'm coming from, which is a country full of dicks. Be nice, it's a community. I'm glad to say that here everyone are nice, so yay for you. And I'm also here because of this guy, who convinced me to, hey, if you have something cool, send it to LayerOne. So I did, so thank you for that. And for that, sir, you get a cyber bomb. Hooray! Okay, enough with the cockery. And so this talk is based on the blog post I wrote, like a guest, I wrote a guest blog post on objective-c.com, which is Patrick Wardle's website. If you know him, he does a lot of Mac security tools, and he was kind enough to let me post this thing at his blog, which was pretty insane because it got a lot of press coverage. So just Google my name or go to this link, and you'll find it and everything else. Okay, so as I said, we're talking about adware. So what we're going to talk here is basically what is adware, if you weren't around for the past 15 years. And then we're going to talk briefly about adware on Mac, and then we're going to talk about the pain in the ass, which is OSX Pirrit. Okay, so what is adware? I usually call adware the herpes of computers because it's so annoying and you can't get rid of it. Especially on Windows, but it's also on Mac, as you'll see soon. Now, usually you get adware when you download software from those shady websites or from those really yes, very good, very good. So usually you can get these annoying adware from a lot of download websites like download.com and all of those kind of things. And basically what will happen is that you'll get an installer of some sort, and this installer will say, hey, would you like to run this and install this along with what you originally downloaded? And if you won't be careful and you'll hit next, 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 you'll get herpes. So this is basically adware. A nice example is this screenshot that you can see here for a random Flash player that gets you the Babylon toolbar, which is one of the most annoying things known to man. So the way I divide adware, I divide it into three because in the Israeli army, we divide anything into three, so yeah. So the first category is what I call, it's the plain and stupid. It just displays random ads without any context, sorry. You'll just go and browse on the internet and all of a sudden you'll have those annoying pop-ups or pop-unders with mail enhancement offers, usually. So this was popular a long time ago. The next category is the norm, is the most common variant of herpes, which is basically what will display banners, and it will replace words in the pages you browse, and it's pretty much a norm, and it adjusts the ads according to metrics that are gathered from your browser. So if you're buying a lot of shoes, you'll get advertisement to buy shoes. And the third category is what I call the Black Ops operative, which is really, 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 really annoying. And this is the case we're going to talk about today. So what I'm going to show you today, again, it's on a Mac, and it installs hidden users, and it gets root access, and it hijacks your entire traffic, and unless you know what you're doing, it's pretty hard to get rid of. And another cool thing that it does, it replaces originally in legit ads on the pages with like Pirrit's own ads, and this is stealing, by the way. Okay, so adware on the Mac is usually this kind of things. Can you see the mouse pointer? Okay, cool. So these are usually what you know from Windows as toolbars. So in Safari, which is the browser on Mac, these are add-ons, or as they're called, extensions. And usually this is the usual form of adware on Mac. You'll get one of those annoying extensions. It will usually be a toolbar or something that hijacks your search provider, and it will. They always say it enhances your experience. So, and this is pretty easy to get rid of. You just hit the uninstall button here, or you just delete it, and that's it. So it wasn't really elaborate. So this specific example, which is Spigot, also added a launch agent, which is Viz talked about it yesterday. These are basically autoruns on MacSpeak. So it added these files, these pillis files, and basically if you got rid of these files, you just remove them, then it's okay, you got rid of this thing. Just uninstall the toolbar and delete those launch agents and you're all set. So this is pretty simple. The whole thing, which I am about to talk to you about, started almost 2 months ago on a random evening that I decided to check the IRC channel I'm in, which is OSX Pirrit on Freenet. And this is what happens. So, Freenode, sorry. An IRC user with the name of Cyano just popped in the channel and said, hey, my friend's Mac is actually really weird. I mean, some weird shit is happening. Sites are not loading. Everything is slow. And I'm a Linux guy. I'm not a Mac guy. So just can you help me out? And we told him to, we asked him which programs are running, what you have there. And he just looked in his process list and he saw this weird process called sizzling. And we asked him to just send us the executable. So he did. And another member of the channel, his name was Perexor, he just downloaded the executable and just started reversing it. And he posted some functions name to the channel. Now, I don't know if you can see it over there. I think you can. So according to the functions names, and you see adds proxy engine, HTML injected. So he said, oh, that's an adware, you know, and an adware, it's not really interesting, so, you know. But something caught my attention, and it wasn't the function's name, it was this thing, this type. And the reason that I found it interesting, it's because it's a Qt type, which represents usually strings, and you use that to use strings in Qt. Now, if you don't know Qt, and I guess it's supposed to be pronounced cute, I don't know a single person that calls Qt cute, A, because it's disgusting, and B, because everybody says Qt. Now, Qt is a cross-platform application development framework. It means that you can basically write your code once or maintain one code base that is pretty much identical, and then you could just compile your program to run on Windows, Linux, Mac, or whatever else you want it to run. Now, there's the cost of it, and the cost is there's a lot of like external libraries, DLLs, or dilibs as we call them on Mac, and they are bundled with this with your project, so it's a bit larger and more cumbersome to copy, stealthy, so to say. Now, around this time, a guy in the Macrumors forum opened the thread and asked, what is the unillumination process on Mavericks? Now, Mavericks is an old version of OSX. And this guy said, I have this weird process called unillumination, and it opens, this is a screenshot from the Little Snitch personal firewall. And he posted the screenshots, and as you can see, this thing like opens a lot of connections. This says 702 successful connections and 212,060 connections blocked. So this thing was doing something, but nobody knew what it is. And this guy said, I have this thing, and it keeps connecting to the internet, and I have no idea what it is. Who knows what it is? And he also said that, as you can see here, the user that runs it is called Tarkin, and he said, I'm not Tarkin. I have no idea what this user is. So this was starting to get interesting. Now, he also posted a screenshot of the directory of where that executable is. So you can see it here on Illumination, and you can see this whole bunch of libraries and frameworks which belong to Qt that I've just, Qt that I've just mentioned a couple of slides ago. Now, this is very messy. I mean, for something that's supposed to be pretty stealthy, it makes a lot of noise because you have like a shit ton of libraries here and frameworks, and it's not stealthy. So now things are starting to get interesting. Got some ice there. Okay, so the first thing I started doing is I asked the guy for some samples of the file, and he uploaded it, and I started looking at these two interesting things, which one was a script called rec_script.sh, and the other was the binary itself that he was talking about, the unillumination. So the first thing I did was to look at its string tables. You know, I'm nothing fancy. And the first thing I noticed is, I don't know if you can see it over there with the red arrow, there is a Windows registry key inside this Mac binary, hkey local machine /software/Pirrit. What the fuck? Like, why do you have a Windows registry key on a Mac O executable on Mac? Like, what the hell? It shouldn't be there, right? And when I continued looking through it, I saw this URL, which was very long and weird, and I didn't know what it is. So, you know, I did what everyone else did. I Googled. So I Googled for this URL, and I got one result, which was from the Joe Sandbox website, which is an amazing sandbox, which I highly recommend, by the way. And it gave me a Windows executable, Windows PE executable. Why? This is on Mac. Why it gives me a Windows executable? I had no idea what's going on. So I went to this website, to that link, the shorte.st, and apparently it's a URL shortening service that will give you money for every time somebody accesses this link. So you know, display ads, and somebody will end up earning money. So, okay. So then I went to Google, and I just wrote Pirrit because I didn't know what Pirrit was. And I got this, a whole bunch of adware for Windows. So now we were talking, I mean, you know. So I started also looking at the script, the rec script.sh, and things were starting to look very nasty. The contents of it was, as you can see here, a variable called hidden pass, which is test, which is rather lame, a hidden user ID, a hidden name, a hidden home directory, and these commands. Now these commands are basically adding a user with all of these parameters to the Mac. Think of it like the Mac equivalent of the Linux add user or user add. What? Oh, okay. So again, hidden pass, hidden user ID, hidden name, hidden home directory, and a whole bunch of user add commands. So the DSCL is the directory services client on Mac. So these commands are basically the equivalent, as I said, to the Linux user add. So you see it creates the user, creates the home directory, defines the shell, everything. So basically, someone now has access to this machine, has his own user, has his password, can access the shell. What the fuck? And when I Googled, you know, how to remove Pirrit, I always got something like this. And of course, only for Windows. Go to Control Panel, go to Add Remove Programs, select the Pirrit suggester, as you can see right here, right-click, uninstall, bam, you're done. But if you're looking for something for Mac, well, computer says no. You can't find anything. So back to the story. This guy, Sayana, was back with more. He also found an app bundle on his computer called Demo Updater. Now, he mentioned that this app bundle was running under a different user, which he did not know, which is exactly like what the guy from the Mac Rumors forum said. He sent us this bundle, and inside this bundle, we had a Mach-O binary. So Mach-O is the executable format on Mac. Windows has PE, Linux has ELF, Mac has Mach-O, because they always have to be different. And it had this executable and also a shell script called update2.sh. Now, update2.sh was far more interesting, and this binary was also really interesting. So I took the binary and I started reversing it, and this is the disassembly of it. This is pseudocode. And the idiots that did this didn't strip the symbols, so it made everything way easier. So we had all the names of the functions and what they're doing. So we had this string here, which looks encrypted, but then we could see that there's a function called encrypt decrypt string, encrypt decrypt, and it takes the domain variant A, which is this, and decrypts it with this key. And it does that a whole bunch of times, and as you can see, the variables are called domain variant A, domain variant B, C, and D. So basically, these are the domains. And this looks really shady. I mean, this is some malware-looking stuff. And I looked at the binary, and again, there's more Windows crap. So you see registry path and an encrypted string, an open process string, an advapi string, an open process token string. These are all Windows stuff. It has nothing to do with Mac. So somebody was compiling this very poorly for Mac and for Windows because he had variants for every operating system. Now, I talked about the update to shell script, so let's look at that. So when the executable I just talked about finishes running, it executes this script. Now, this was a huge script. It had 330 lines, and it even had some inline Python code. So it was like Python -C, and then a whole bunch of Python shit going there. So this was very, very, very interesting and very, very, very tiring to analyze. But basically, and this is the wall of text, so this is going to be hard, but then there won't be any more, so bear with me. So basically what it did, it got the machine's UUID, which is like its unique ID. It was just running a command line, IREG, and then it just parses its output with like pipe awk, pipe grep, very disgusting. And then it sent this machine ID to a server in order to get a new ID, like the malware ID, from the CNC server. And as you can see, it just did it with curl. So it ran curl, http:// this terrible domain, and then some web service that gets these IDs as a parameter. Then it tried to validate your geolocation. I mean, because it displays ads, right? So it wants to see if you're from either US, UK, Spain, Australia, France, Germany, India, Italy, the Netherlands, or New Zealand, I'm sorry. And if you are from there, you'll get a different ad package. And they said ad package with the double quotes inside the script. So yeah, laser. After all of this, it was updating the CNC server and was telling it that, hey, you know, I finished my installation, it was successful. So this UID of this machine now has herpes, you know, have fun. And then when all of this was done, it was downloading another component, or another program, so to say, and it was called Demo Injector. Now, again, if you remember, the guy on IRC that started reversing the program saw HTML inject, a function called HTML inject, and I said, Demo Injector, it's probably connected to it. So just for do a quick recap, here's what we know by now. So we know that it's an adware, right? We know that it generates traffic. We know that it's cross-platform because someone was stupid enough to leave Windows stuff in there. It's definitely trying to hide strings and domains inside the binary because they're all encrypted and base 64 and XORed, and it's disgusting. It adds a user with a weird name. The names seem to be just random. But in order to do that, it has to get root access. And none of these people know to say, like, you know, how it happened, how this thing gets root access. And at this point, I'm like, holy shit, there has to be a node A here. Oh my God, it's so awesome. Because, you know, I research Macs for a living, and I want to see some fucking node A's. So again, it runs also weird processes with strange names, and it has a component called Demo Updater, which we just talked about. And again, when I asked people, hey, did you install something? How did you get it? No, everybody was like, I have no idea how it happened. So now I'm going to do something really annoying that if you've seen Lost, you probably know. I'm going to do a flash sideways. So after this whole thing just got some publicity and my article was published and it got some buzz, this guy, Noir, is on Twitter, at Noir from Space. He found the dropper of it, or one of the droppers, and he posted a link for it. So I went on and clicked the link, and I got this thing. Microsoft Office 2016 crack Mac OS X. Nobody knows how they got infected. So I downloaded this. I clicked the huge download button, and I got this thing. Now, this is an installer. This is a package installer. And if you're a Mac guy, you've probably seen it once or twice. And then I tweeted this. I mean, hey, nobody knows how they got infected. They're probably downloading cracks or porn codecs, because all of these websites that had these droppers were either crack websites or porn websites. And let me tell you, none of these cracks had cracks in them. They just had this terrible thing. So a few people got very, very disappointed. I'm sorry, I can't open this document. My office locked up on me and I see all these weird ads. So just to go really quickly, what is a PKG file? So this icon belongs to the PKG file I just talked about. So it's the Mac equivalent of the MSI installer. Now, basically, it's just an extended archive format. It's nothing really crazy and elaborate. And it has this nice wizard, that you can customize with the EULA messages and next, 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 next. And it can be signed with a developer certificate. So in Mac universe, if you want to run something pretty much without a hitch, without getting like one of those weird messages, hey, this thing is not unsigned, it's not signed, it's unknown, do you know where you got it from? You have to give Apple $99 and a good excuse to give you a certificate to sign your stuff. Now, as I will demonstrate, getting those certificates isn't really hard. It's all about the money, basically. So it's just $99, and hey, I'm an app developer. Okay, cool, here's a cert. And now you can run stuff on Macs. And the most important things, Vis, I told you, there's something for everyone in this talk. The cool thing about this, it has the ability to run pre and post install scripts. Now, what these mean, and again, I'll show it, if you do it right, you can basically make a script run the moment you double-click the installer. You don't have to, you'll see this, hey, welcome to the installation, would you like to continue? And the script will run before you hit next. So if somebody double-clicked it, if you made it look legit enough, if you signed it, well, you pretty much can drop shit on Macs. And it's a feature, by the way. And yeah, so again, as I said, PKG files are very, very convenient to drop malware, and I said you can code sign them. And the scripting features is basically all you need. Like you can make a package file that doesn't install anything. All it has to do is run scripts, which is basically what this thing did, and you are golden. So a program I really like and I'd like to recommend, if you were downloading a package, you don't know where it's from, or you're kind of suspicious, you could run a whole bunch of command line foo, but if you're lazy, you could just use this great program. It's called a Suspicious Package from Mother's Ruin Software, which is an awesome name for a company. And it's very easy. You can see here, it shows you the package, and it tells you like a quick overview. It tells you if it's signed, what's the status of the signature, and so on and so forth. It tells you if it runs scripts. And by the way, this is the package the guy on Twitter posted. And as you can see, it's signed with a revoked certificate under the name Keren O. Now, this is another interesting thing because Keren O is an Israeli name. It literally translates to ray of light, but it's a name. And apparently the people behind this, my guess, are Israeli, and they have a fuck ton of certificates. And I will also cover this later. By the way, I'm cursing a lot. I understood it's okay, right? It's okay to curse, yeah? Fuck yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah, I know. Okie dokie. So, again, as I said, in Suspicious Package, you can take a look at the scripts that are running. Now, this is rather small on the orange, right? So, something happened here. And basically, I put the interesting stuff in this red square. So when you're double-clicking this installer, this script will run. And basically, there's two interesting things here. The first square here is it's checking if you're running it inside a VM. Now, this is something I saw that they added after I posted my article, because I was running this on VMs. So they added this quick VM check, which basically just runs ioreg, which is again a Mac command line, and it's grepping for the CPU vendor, and then it's just grepping for Parallels, VirtualBox, Oracle, and VMware. And if it returns true, then it behaves differently. And the second square here is it's just curling and executing a file in the background. So basically you double-clicked it and already it's downloading and running shit. Now, regarding that virtual machine check that they do, since it's a script and I am not that good as I say I am, I just commented it out. I wrote, is VM equals 0? Holy shit, VM detection bypass. So it wasn't that hard. Way to go, Amit, you're such a hacker. Okay, so just So we could understand the entire process is this. So I guess this is also small on your end, so I'll just read it out loud because I talk a lot. So the user downloads a crack, right? It then gets this package installer. He double clicks it. The installer runs a script on the background. The script downloads something that's called demo updater, which is what we talked about earlier. Demo updater, now it prepares the whole infrastructure and creates directories and stuff and runs the script that downloads demo injector, which is that whatever that thing is that injects ads, and then somebody makes a profit. So this is how it goes. Now, demo updater, it's the first component that's actually being installed by Pirrit. And as I said, it's the component that lays the groundwork. So it was very annoying to understand what it's actually doing, but basically as far as I understood, they just made this binary and somebody wrote code in Qt, which is terrible, basically to see if they have, if they can execute the script that does everything. So the binary, all it does, it just unpacks the domains because the domains are encrypted in it, and then, they put this domain inside the script is running, and that's it, it starts to install. So the binary itself isn't that important, it's only to hide the domains. And remember those strange names I talked about before? People said, oh, what is this? What is an unillumination? What is sizzling? So this is the script that generates them. So basically, as you can see, and I also wrote it on Twitter, I am like 100% positive that the guy who did this has no idea about OSX, and he's just a Linux guy that writes really shitty scripts. So basically, what you can see here is a variable called appname equals, and then it just, oh shit. Oh yeah. Okay, so again, the cable here is flawed. Luckily, it's the end of the con. Okay, so app name equals, and then it just cats the dictionary file, the words, a file with a whole bunch of words, and then just grabs for a random word, picks it up, and just shoves it in there. So this is how random names are generated, right? And then it appends the UPD to it, so you'll have sizzling UPD. Ooh, it's an updating thing of some sort. So after that random name is being generated, it's being written to a file called com.common.plist. So Vis in his talk mentioned yesterday plist files and what they are. So Mac, unlike Windows, it doesn't have a registry, and pretty much all of the stuff you want to configure and save in places is being saved inside these files, which are called plists. Now, a plist stands for property list. It's basically a fancy XML, but although it could sometimes be binary, there's also a binary plist, and you see that a lot. And it has the reverse DNS notations that Apple love, and it's also like that in Android. So usually nobody enforces that naming convention. I could have created something malicious and just call it com.apple. Something really fucking bad, and it's Apple now because I wrote Apple in there. So it was saved to com.common.plist because it seems benign enough and nobody will care. But a lot of these words and configurations were saved in this file. Now after that, it creates another file to hold its preferences. So this plist is also created with a random name. Again, it was picked up from this script, right? So it's called like com.random something, I don't know, com.chair.preferences.plist. And again, if somebody will go through his file system and he will see that file and say, there's nothing wrong, it's just a preferences thing, right? And here how it does that. It's also very stupid. It's like a variable name that equals com dot, and then it just appends the app name, the random name, and then it appends .preferences.plist, saves it to the file, and then it does, and as you can see here, it does something, but it does that as root. Now, again, how did it get root? So apparently, when you're double-clicking that package installer thing icon, it immediately pops up and says, hey, I want to install something, what's your root password? You put in. So Novice, you don't need to just pop up random windows, you could just use this. You were working too hard. Again, it's a feature. Okay. So it just writes something to the defaults. Now a default is, again, it's sort of like a registry. It's this, I'm very simplifying it, but it's basically a place where you can hold a variable and a value. So it writes the pref UID, and it says it's in, ooh, where's the pref UID? Where's the thing that stands for pref UID? And it just say, oh, okay, it's in /library/preferences/common.common.plist. So this is what you need to know. This is not that important, but you saw it does things with sudo. Okay, so after all of this happens, the script carries on with creating the demo updater bundle, which is the thing that the guy on IRC sent us and the guy on the forum sent, because they had those weird bundles that they didn't know where they come from. So this is how they were made. Again, it's a very ugly script. I mean, nothing was binary, no really super like IDA pro skills were needed. It was just a matter of really reading long and terribly written scripts. Now, luckily, these scripts were comment, like they had comments in them, and you could see that change name of the exe, which like exe, it's like, you're not on Windows, dude. Just stop it. So again, this entire script just, renames the bundle thing to, instead of being called demo updater, it just calls it some random name it generated from before. And then it adds a launch daemon. Now, a launch daemon, as I said before, in Mac you have launch daemon and launch agents, which are Mac speak for autoruns. And the difference between them is that a launch daemon will run when your computer boots. A launch agent will run when you log in with your user to your machine. So basically now this thing runs when you boot your machine, and it's in there and there's nothing you can do about it. And it also, for some reason, it echoes stuff behind the scenes like, app name is, and then it saves it to this file, and then it says installer updater end, and it saves it to this file. And the funny thing is that those files are being saved, but they're not deleted for some reason. Like in their script, they had like rm this log file, but it was commented out. So those idiots left log files on your machine while they were at it. So as I said, this is a launch daemon. This is what it looks like. It's just a plist file. As you can see here, this is the actual plist that was dropped in this with OSX Pirrit, and you can see that it has the username is root, and this is like the app ID. Run at load means it runs when the machine boots, and it runs a script that's called /etc change_net_settings.sh. This is pretty brazen. So now what happens, okay? So all of the infrastructure was set up from behind, and it's like, okay, we have this thing, now let's fucking run it, right? So it's time for the main event. So we have a random name generated for demo updater. We just talked about it. We have an autorun set for it, so it runs when we boot our machine. But now it's time to hijack your connection and plant ads in it. Now, the way that adware usually puts ads in your sessions is that it does it from the browser. It has some kind of code that runs from within the browser via those toolbars I mentioned before. Now, this is the case with Pirrit on Windows, but in Pirrit on Mac, it's where they've gone like, oh, fuck you, we're just going to hijack your entire connection and put ads in it. So they're actually installing a proxy on your machine, and they're hijacking your entire traffic through that proxy. And this is how they do it. So the proxy is demo injector, which is what we talked about before. Now, it's downloading it from this URL, this really long and shady URL, and you'll notice that the file name is dit3.tgz. Now, I couldn't figure out what dit means. What's dit? What does it mean? And then I realized it's demo injector, and I'm an idiot. And the numbers actually were incremental. So the more samples I had, it was downloading dit3, dit4, dit5, and so on and so forth. The last one was dit8 from April 10th, which was just like 2 days after my article was released, and that's it. Ever since, there aren't any new dit files, at least not on this address. So as I said, the proxy is called demo injector, and it is also a disgusting Qt project. This is actually what we reversed at the beginning. The guy reversed it on IRC. And it has a lot of shell scripts. Now, the most interesting one is install_injector.sh. So it's almost the same thing. They're really similar. It also generates the whole random company name and executable name, just as I explained before. And this is the scripts that create the hidden user that we saw in the beginning. Like, we didn't know, hey, what is this hidden user? Who created it? Who runs it? So this is how it does it. So as you can see, again, it's commented. I didn't add these. It came like this. And you can see that, again, it takes a word from the dictionary, greps it, cuts it, appends it, and so on, and then writes it to the defaults under the user ID value. And then you can see that you have the hidden pass, which is always test, which is amazing because you have this thing that they probably tested it a lot and said, oh, I'll put the hidden pass as test, we're just testing it. And then they made it like to production. So I found it amazing. Yeah, exactly. And they added like the whole thing, right? But the hidden user ID was 401. And do we have any Mac admins in the crowd by any chance? Of course, there aren't many in the world. Like, why should they be here? Okay, so the hidden user ID thing, like I find it really interesting. Why 401 from all numbers? And apparently this was the reason. And there is a comment. There's a comment, enable the hide 500 users attribute, right? And then it runs this command, again, with sudo, and it writes to the, oh shit, I just revealed the secret. And, and then it writes this, this command, it runs it, and it's like, oh, set the /library/preferences/com.apple.login window, set the key hide 500 users to yes. Now, I Googled, because this is what I do. I'm a researcher. I Google shit. And somebody was reading the Apple documentation and did exactly what this instructions say. Hey, if you want to hide a user, just give it an ID under 500. Let's say 401. Yeah. I know, right? It's a feature. Yeah, copy pasta. Classic copy pasta with all of the toppings. So the end result, and this is from my test VM. So as you can see, I have a test user, and you can see their user. You can't see it anywhere, actually. Even in this thing, in the users and group window, when it's unlocked, so I already entered my root password, so I'm supposed to be like root, and I'm supposed to know what's happening on my machine? Nuh-uh. This thing isn't there. So they have an invisible user in my machine. So this is some terrible stuff. Now, after all of this, they're just running the server, the proxy server, okay? So they're just executing this launch agent that they just installed. So, and again, it's commented, run server. So they just run it with launch control because it's a launch agent. God damn it. Yay. Did you see the previous slide or not? Yep. Okay, cool. And then it does the really interesting thing, traffic redirection. So as I said, this thing hijacks your entire traffic. And I was curious, how did they do that? And apparently, as I said before, the guy who did this, or the guy or girl, sorry, is probably a Linux guy. So in Linux, you have IP tables that you can do anything you want with it. And in Mac, you have PF, packet filter, which is very, very similar to that. So basically what they did, they wrote a rule in PF that it says basically RDR pass INET proto TCP. So it says, okay, just take all of the traffic, all of the TCP traffic from $active interface, and they check which interface you're using, whether it's the wireless or the Ethernet one. So take all of the TCP traffic to anywhere on port 80 and redirect it to localhost on this port 9882. So basically now every packet you send on port 80 will go through this proxy who's running in the background on your machine. And they were also, they also said, do it to any user, even root, but don't do it to the hidden user, because hidden user, if it will redirect itself, everything would break, because hidden user is the user that runs the proxy in the background. So this is pretty much what they did. They just hijacked your entire traffic. And when they hijacked your entire traffic, they planted the ads. Now remember that change net settings file from before. So this is this file. This is what it does. It adds the rule and PF, and it also runs every time you power on your machine. So when I doubt you can see, right? Yeah. So it also runs that on every time. Like you power on your machine, you hear that sound that the Mac does, and you know this stuff is going in the background. And profit. Now, ironically enough, this was the first ad I saw when I was infected with OSX Pirrit. And it was an advertisement, for MacKeeper, which is a fake, like this terrible AV for Mac, which is terrible, so don't use it ever. So you'll have, hey, you're infected, just download this. And if you'll download MacKeeper, you'll get more herpes. So it's terrible. It's just terrible. Now, about the droppers and the signatures I talked about before. So one really interesting thing I saw throughout this research, which I'm still going through, like I'm finding more droppers, and if any of you are or will follow me on Twitter, I always write about it. So I have a contact in Apple, one of their security people, and every time I find a new dropper, I send him the ID of the signature of the certificate. So if people will download this dropper, they won't be able to install it, because the moment they will double click it, their Mac will go, oh, this is revoked, I'm not running this. So the interesting thing here, and I don't know if you can see it, these are 3 examples, and there were much more, there were many more. All of the code signatures, all of the certificates had Israeli names on them. Now they were all on the same website, and those Israeli names, I looked on LinkedIn, and I looked everywhere I could find, but I got nothing. So, and to get a certificate, you need to give them some of your details, like send them an ID or a passport or something that identifies you, because they say, hey, you take this cert and you can run code on Macs. So these guys have a lot of certs. Now, every time their certificate was revoked, like the guy from Apple says, hey Amit, thanks for letting me know, I revoked it. And I checked it on my machine, and as you can see, it says revoked here. I went to the website, clicked the same link, download the file, it had a new cert on it. So, and this happened again and again. I told him, hey, there's a new cert here, revoke this. And he said, oh, I did. I go back, they have a new cert again. So this is really impressive. Now, I think I know who is behind this. These are all of those, they call it software distribution platforms, which is a euphemism for we install adware on your machine. And I don't want to say anything more than that, because I really don't want to get sued. But I think I know who's behind, and the Israeli names doesn't help. And so I wrote this removal script, and I said, hey, this is how you check if you're infected, and if you're infected, and only if you're infected, run this script. So this guy on GitHub just opened the tickets on GitHub, and he says, fuck you! You destroyed my machine! Everything is erased! And I was like, how did that happen? Well, did you see if you were infected? Did you check if you were infected? And he said, no, I just ran it. I'm like, and I told him, but hey, I want to help you, and I'm a good guy, so I want to help you, so please send me some logs, and I'd appreciate some clean language. So he changed the title from fuck you to remove my settings. So, yeah, I was too lazy to write an if statement. So if you're running any of my scripts, don't trust me. Because I am lazy. Now some final words. Why the hell does he have a sword? So people think that this box has unicorns inside. Like people think, oh, I have a Mac. We don't have these things you have on PCs. We don't get ransomware. We don't get adware. We don't get viruses and malware and cyber stuff. And actually, well, you can. And the more these machines are getting popular, the more of this will happen. Now, this was, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, I was holding my head between my hands, and I was like face palming, like, how can you make this kind of things just an installer, distribute it, and get root on machines, install program that actually redirects your traffic and displays ads. I mean, and this is why I called it the blue balls, because they could have done so much cool shit with it other than just showing you ads. They could have stolen your credentials. They could have took your bank credentials. They could have did so many interesting things, and they didn't. So one of the things that I'm trying to do at our company is to find all of these threats from the really serious kernel vulnerabilities and these, like, you know, these benign threats, and just mitigate them. And because I don't know, I love my Mac, but it's a piece of shit. So that's it, and thank you all. And yeah, so thank you. So just to say thanks. So Patrick Wardle from Objective-C, and he's a really cool guy, so you want to check out his website. And if it wasn't him, I wouldn't have been here, and this thing made a lot of buzz online, so thanks to him. Also thanks to Datagram for having me here. This is really awesome. This is my first time speaking outside of my country, and I was very nervous, and you know, he made it easy, so thanks Datagram. Thanks for my pals at Cybereason for picking up the check, because it's expensive to fly me halfway around the world. Thanks Cybervis thank you for convincing me to do that. And thank you, you're awesome. So, oh, and I'll be popping shells on on a router from Israel and Fail of Things. So if you want to see shells pop, so come by Fail of Things. If you have any questions, we have like 10 minutes to do that. Oh, right. Okay, so questions? Yes. Yeah, so I couldn't get a lot of like information because, again, I saw some posts online, and after this thing went published and generated some buzz, cyber bombs. I started asking around, and people said, "Oh, I had a friend who got this. I had like my dad got this on his machine." So I don't know how many people were infected. But I have a guy who sits next to me at work, who works for a company that does these things, and he said, "You know how much money they make? It's crazy. Like, they make so much money off of it because they do that on Windows and Mac. And the Windows, you know, every time you go and download something from a software like one of those, what's it called, softsomething.com, exactly these, yeah, you get herpes, and herpes is really popular with those things." Okay, yeah, wrap it up. So cyber bombs, and 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 thank you.
So, before you guys go, starting in the chill out room is the Fail of Things. Again, reminder, no recording, audio or visual. We will be policing it, but head over there if you're interested in that. We got a talk coming up in a few minutes. It is Intrusion Hunting for the Masses, a practical guide. Also in Lockpicking Village is an intro to lockpicking if you missed the earlier one. So all of that starting in a few minutes in their respective rooms.